Hello and welcome to Rear Winging It, the Formula One podcast. I'm your host Ellie, and I'm joined by my co-host Kieran.
Hello.
And our other co-host, Harry.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. Kieran, of course, you didn't join us
No.
on our previous episode. How was your holiday?
It was lovely, thank you. It was very nice. In Morocco. Lovely country, would recommend. Prime for an F1 race, you know.
Well, yeah.
An F1 race in Africa.
They're looking to get one on the continent.
Exactly.
I
was doing some scouting work.
Maybe
that's what
one
I was there
day.
for.
One day it'll be the 56th race on the calendar.
Yeah.
All right. So, Singapore this weekend, a street circuit. We're not massive fans of street circuits, but this is Formula One's original
The
night
OG.
race. Harry, how did you find the whole weekend? The nighttime aspect of it? Are you a fan of night races?
Yeah, I think every now and then a night race, it has a bit of a different vibe, you know, a bit of a different atmosphere. Obviously, the track is so well lit up here. Like, I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell it's a night race, but Singapore is such a cool city, and I was there once, literally like the weekend before I think the race, so they were setting stuff up and everything. So it was quite cool to like see the streets where they were going to race on. I mean, I do like the vibe of the track, and I think for qualifying it's quite fun.
Definitely.
You know, when you're on board with the car in some sections, it seems really cool. Just the races are a bit dull. Narrow street circuits, hard to overtake, the usual kind of issues with it. So actual race wise, it's never that interesting, but I normally enjoy it enough.
But quali is normally quite fun. We saw like a reasonably normal quali, people where you'd expect them. We had both of the Alpines out in Q1, pretty standard for them. We did see Colapinto out qualifying Gasly. Kieran, do you think that the car's just terrible and neither of them are doing well? Or do you think Colapinto has, the last couple of races, actually stepped up a bit from maybe our low expectations of him?
I don't know. The car, it's just hard to really judge the performance of a driver when the car is clearly that far cut adrift. Do you know what I mean? I think maybe he's cut out the crashes, but then if there's no one around him, how hard is that? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think he's cut out the crashes and that's an improvement, but whether that is, you know what I mean, it's quite a sad thing to have to say that he's not costing the team millions in damages every week anymore. Is that really something to write home about? I don't know. But I guess by that metric, it is an improvement.
Yeah. Another of the rookies that's kind of stepped on in the last few races, I think, Behrman, he made it into Q3 this weekend, and Ocon didn't even make it out of Q1. So that's that's a significant out-qualifying. You know, Gasly's and Colapinto was only 2 places. Like, Ocon and Behrman, that's a whole...
He was...
like a different car, almost.
Yeah.
In Q1, he was 0.5 faster than Ocon, so yeah, significant.
That's huge. Yeah,
and I think he's doing well.
Yeah.
He's doing well.
He is doing well. I think the one that came in maybe with the most fanfare, and then I think I guess he wasn't in a car that's particularly competitive, and Ocon's a reasonably sturdy driver. You know, he's been around the block, so I guess it was a difficult pairing for Behrman to come into and to impress. But I think as the season's gone on, he has come into himself a bit more.
Definitely.
Someone who definitely I would say hasn't, after a brief is Yuki Tsunoda. He didn't make Q3 again, and when you compare that to Hadjar being back in Q3 for this race, it's Yuki got out qualified by Lawson for this race, and it's not something that's become uncommon this season, but it's something that it feels unnatural almost to have the Racing Bulls quite often out qualifying the Red Bull.
Yeah.
But I guess we're just getting used to it a bit more. I don't know, Kieran, do you think there's any hope for Yuki to have a seat next year?
No, I don't think so. I think if anything, what doesn't help him is the recent mini resurgence, let's call it that, of the form of Max Verstappen. That Max has always proved he's the fastest. He's a great driver. No one's asking Yuki to compete with Max on that kind of level, but the clear improvement in the car hasn't really borne out in Yuki's performances. Like, he had a decent result. I think it was Monza. He had a decent result, didn't he? That looked like a bit of a turning point, but really that was because of the direction of the car that Max pushed it in. And I think the clear improvement in the Red Bull car that Max is showing it has had, and the fact that that hasn't reflected in Yuki's performance at all, really doesn't reflect well for him. I think maybe there was an argument that the car was just hard to drive, but if it's now a better car to drive and he's still not performing any better, that's when you have to say, Red Bull being as ruthless as they are, can you see him? Do you think he'll line up in 2026? I personally don't think he'll be in a Red Bull seat in 2026.
No. Yeah, I don't think he'll have any seat in 2026. A driver
that'd be a shame.
Also may not have a seat in 2026 is George Russell. He's still not signed his contract extension or a new contract, whatever. But Mr. Saturday showed up. His qualifying pace was phenomenal. His two final laps he did in the final part of qualifying would have both been good enough for pole, and he was one of very few drivers on that final lap that actually managed to improve.
I think it was pretty much him.
Sorry, Harry, what?
I was going to say, I think it was pretty much just him who improved. Everyone else was off the pace a lot. And we've spoken about it before this season, how becoming the team leader, he's really stepped up and he's put in some great performances. And he said after the race, if you'd have asked me if we would have, pace at Singapore, he would have ranked Singapore as like one of the hardest tracks for the Mercedes car. And yet he managed to bring out a quite unexpected result from it. So I'm sure it's just a matter of time before they have the new contract wrapped up.
They'd be crazy not to. They'd be crazy not to.
They'd be crazy not to. He's had a great year, and McLaren, I think, were less competitive coming into this weekend than people were expecting. I think, I said it at the end of the last episode that they were going to, this track suits their car a bit more. Harry, do you think it's just that they obviously have less wind tunnel time? Do you think they've just wound down in the way we saw Red Bull do a bit last year?
Yeah, I mean, it's very possible. Like you said, last year Red Bull either fell off or McLaren really came back strong. It is interesting that, I was going to say everyone, not Ferrari, but Mercedes now, Red Bull having that pace. I think Red Bull are developing. I'm not sure about Mercedes, but I know Red Bull are developing and they're putting more time this year rather than next year because they think that it will sort of pay dividends next year, understanding the car, understanding the sort of correlation between wind tunnel tests and actual on-track stuff. That will make a difference. If they can get that back in line, that's been a big problem. Getting the simulators back in line with what they actually see, that's worth it. Maybe Mercedes is doing a similar thing. I mean, they've been there or thereabouts with the sort of Ferraris, but this could be a one-off. It could be the pace coming back. I was surprised at the lack of pace. There was times where it was, I know my dad was sort of saying like what is happening? Like, surely this gap should be closing. And it was, maybe in the past you could say, they're managing their pace, but I don't think we saw that this weekend. I think we saw them really struggle for it. So
at a track that we thought that would suit the car.
Yeah, we thought it'd be strong. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it is more of a trend.
Yeah. I think that they did shut up shop a bit and cruise in because the lead they had was essentially insurmountable with having, Ferrari have two reasonably good drivers, but were probably too far off it. I know they were second at some points, but they were I'd say unrealistic.
No,
and then
constructors it was
with the constructors, and then with having Mercedes and Red Bull only really having one strong driver, even if they had a crazy end to the season and the McLaren fell off massively, I don't think they would have been able to catch them on account of them not having two drivers that were going to regularly be getting 1-2s.
Even in the drivers, like say, Red Bull gets way faster, you can still have a McLaren finish second every race and take the championship because like especially for the drivers as well, the difference between first and second being 7 points is not enough to close the gap they had. So I think downing tools and moving on made sense from both championships, really.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, they must have started developing a while ago, to be honest. It's been in the bag for weeks.
Yeah.
The fact it's taken them this long and to only have 6 races to go is the surprising bit, if anything, not the fact they've won it. Do you know what I mean? The fact it's taken them this long to win it.
Yeah. So just to round out qualifying, Albon and Sainz were both disqualified for a DRS slot gap infringement. So their DRS gap was slightly too big. Mm-hmm. It wasn't contested by the team, so I guess it's one of the slam dunk kind of penalties. We see that with teams sometimes, and it's interesting. I wonder how it kind of happens, because surely people are measuring for that. People must be checking before they send the car out that it does conform. Yeah. Maybe they just had a...
Well, they said they measured it, but I don't know if you have a faulty measurer or you... I mean...
It feels like the Williams of a few years ago, doesn't it? It feels like the team that turned up to testing without a car ready, the slightly farcical years of Williams. Like, it really feels like they've turned a corner from that kind of issue, so it is a bit of a surprising step back. Hopefully it's one of them things where one poor person probably gets fired over it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Moving on to the race then, as we say, McLaren, they've wrapped up the constructors with 6 races to go, but their form has slipped, but I don't think they're necessarily too concerned about that. They're not sluggish, they're just not the quickest.
Both championships anymore, in the bag. It just depends who.
Yeah,
that's all that matters at this point.
It was an absolute dominant win from George Russell. It never really looked under threat. I think there was maybe a point where it looked as though maybe Max could go and chase him down, but Max didn't have the pace to do that. George was, I guess, running in the cleaner air. It's never that clean around Singapore, because obviously you start lapping the cars pretty quickly. But even though he'd had a race that didn't seem that difficult, he was absolutely dead on his feet when he was out of the car. He looked a bit fresher than Max and Lando, but he still looked absolutely exhausted. This was obviously the first heat hazard race as well, so even though it's at night, it is still crazy. They're losing 4 kilos of liquid essentially. Harry, do you think how long do you reckon you could last in the car? Because I reckon I could last probably 10 minutes and then I'd be, no, this is torture, get me out.
If that. It's so hot. When you're in high humidity places like that, it's 30 degrees feels like hell, and then in the cockpit of those cars is going to be way hotter. You're going to be literally almost drowning in sweat. It must be awful.
Yeah, and to have the thick, because obviously they're wearing the fireproof suits as well. Yeah. And then you've got a helmet on. There's no part of your skin is exposed to the elements. 2 hours like that? No. I don't think I just couldn't last. And we've seen races in the past where drivers couldn't, but it's still, obviously they're very fit and healthy people, but when they get out of the car, I think sometimes you forget how physical of a sport it is.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. They're already very slim, very lean. So to lose that much weight in sweat is unbelievable.
Yeah, there is a maximum to how much the drivers are allowed to weigh. It's 70 something kilograms. So they're not allowed to be bulky. And obviously for someone like George Russell, who's
I think my left leg weighs 70 kilograms.
But for the taller drivers as well, there's nothing of them because they can't have anything there. But so there was rain before the start, which made it a bit slippery, but somehow there were no DNFs for this race, which really surprised me because I was thinking, got my roast dinner coming up. Hopefully the race doesn't go on for the whole 3-hour window that it can go on.
It normally does. It can do.
Harry, yeah. Were you surprised that there was nobody crashing out, especially after crashes in qualifying, crashes in practice?
Yeah, I mean, you'd expect maybe just the driver error, just to go into the wall, that kind of thing would be pretty expected with the heat and the lack of focus. Like just one little slight slip up. We saw a lot of people going in. I think it's sort of the second to last corner, hitting the wall there, just brushing it, just tapping it, as we did in qualifying. Yeah, nice little kiss, but no one crashing out. And then I did think maybe quite hard to overtake here, with people maybe going for some difficult moves to try and get it done. Maybe that would result in crashing. We saw a little bit of contact, which we'll come to with Norris, but was quite surprised, but I suppose you could say pleasantly, because everyone kept it clean and no crashes, no one got hurt. But in a race like this, sometimes it livens it up a bit, so maybe it was a shame.
Yeah, but then I guess for the driver's sake, they probably didn't want to crash, because it means they're going to be... I know they obviously don't want to crash, but I mean, if there were a crash, the drivers are going to be in the cars much longer under a safety car, so they were probably quite glad. But as you alluded to, Harry, there was obviously a bit of a skirmish on the opening lap. So Norris, I don't know if it is, but it feels like for the first time this season, Norris made up places on the opening lap.
Might as well.
Kieran, would you like to deliver your verdict on his elbows out incident racing?
I think it was I thought it was totally fine. I thought doing it to your teammates not great. But I think there was never going to be any intervention from the stewards on it, and it's just a bit of racing, a bit wheels touching racing. I mean, I know he lost a bit of his front wing going into Verstappen, but it's the opening lap. If you don't want people to make moves on the opening lap, why do we bother? Do you know what I mean? I thought it was a good move. That the only downside was it was into his teammate.
Yeah, I think that's what Piastri came on the radio, didn't he? And he said it's not okay, because they said, he had to avoid contact from Verstappen. I think Piastri come on and said, and the only way he could do that was driving into his teammate.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a teammate game.
Wasn't happy. Yeah.
No, and of course he wouldn't.
I guess because they've tried to race. They always say they can race, but it has to be clean. And I guess that wasn't clean. The cleanest. But
no, I think the problem is they've set those expectations so low in the kind of being able to actually race each other. It makes sense from where they're coming from, maybe if they thought this was going to be a bit more competitive for the constructors. But otherwise, it makes no sense, because you have two competitive drivers at the top of their game going for the Drivers' Championship. Literally what they've worked for their entire lives. They may never get another chance to do it. And you're telling them, you almost want them to drive a meter apart when they try and overtake each other.
Yeah,
it's unrealistic, and it's not going to happen. So you get moments like this where Lando does a really good overtake for the first time this season by the looks of it. Makes up positions. Yes, he it was a bit tight with the just a racing incident, but taps Max, sort of bounces off, nudges into Oscar, but honestly, it was fine. But then you get Oscar on the radio moaning about it. He doesn't see the whole thing, so maybe he can't see the fact that he went into Max. But then the team, again, don't say immediately, look, Oscar, we've reviewed it, it's absolutely fine.
They've made the problem
themselves. He bumped into thing. Yeah, they just say, okay, we'll look into it. So then he's moaning and moaning.
You ever heard of the term toxic positivity? It's a classic case. That's literally what I was going to say. Toxic positivity. It's like equality to the nth degree that actually, like, it's not equity, it's equality, and it's not working, and it's the drivers are getting angry about it. Both of them being annoyed about it at certain points, and like from an outsider looking in, but I just imagine how Piastri feels, where from what we see from where we're sitting, it's a perfectly legitimate overtake. From his perspective, he's been in team meetings telling them, don't, whatever you do, you can't touch each other.
Yeah.
He's been told to back off of attacking Lando before. He gave up a 6-point swing in the championship fight to Lando because Lando had a slow pit stop. So you can see why in his head he's going to act the way he did. Like, we probably don't agree. We don't agree that the place should have been given back. We don't agree that he got a bit spoiled toddler about it. But you've pushed him to that place, you know. You really have. You've made the calmest man on the grid move to that position because of the papaya rules. They've just twisted themselves into such a web of knots on it that I don't know. I feel like it's something they might have to revisit next year if they end up in the similar title fight.
I think what they should have said once, I guess maybe after this race it'll be a bit more gloves off because the Constructors is now wrapped up. But I think what they should have said is once the Constructors wrapped up, you can race how you want to race. But before then, the team comes first and it has to be clean and fair.
I still think they're going to want to get involved. I think it's in McLaren's nature now to want to get involved.
I think it is, but I think it shouldn't be now that I understood it.
I don't think Oscar's going to listen.
I never necessarily agreed with it.
I don't think Oscar's going to listen anymore.
Why would he?
Exactly. Why would he?
That's what exactly. Why would either of them?
And Lando's not gonna exactly, like, if he's behind him and he's behind in the championship, he's behind on track, he's going to go for that overtake that's maybe, you know, not 50-50, but slightly risky. He's going to get his elbows out. He's going to maybe tap into him as he tries to get around because he's fighting for his flipping,
for a championship,
you know, maybe only chance at the championship.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, there was a point made, I think...
And Piastri should do the same, you know, it's,
Yeah, I think Oscar made the point, I don't think it was like on TV interview, but the whole thing where he did give back the place a few weeks ago after Lando's pit stop. I think he said it to Martin Brundle or something. It was on one of the commentaries, but I don't think it was like an official interview where he said, I'm going to need the team one day, so I give that back because I'm going to need them.
Yeah.
And he would have felt on Sunday, okay, now I need the team. I've been the excellent team player in giving back a place that I had no real reason to give back, and he did it, and this was where he thought I'm going to get repaid, and then he didn't. So I think
that's on the
now
team
that
because
they've
they haven't
that
explained that to him.
Yeah, I think that level of trust has been broken a little bit.
Yeah, they should have just immediately on the radio tell him what's up and make that call harsh and to him, because then he might be like, okay, fair enough, you know, because he wasn't betrayed in the sense that Lando did nothing wrong. The team shouldn't make him give it back. But then because they haven't shut it down, he's behind Norris at some point, and he hasn't fully caught up. And he goes, I'm faster. I'm clearly faster. You know, he's sort of lobbying to let them overtake him.
Yeah.
And it's like, he wasn't in DRS range. He was maybe around 2 seconds. And it was like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you are faster, overtake him.
Yeah.
You're in a flipping title championship race with this guy. You think asking over the radio to let him pass, like, you're out of your mind. Yeah. And I think
he never closed the gap to more than 2 seconds.
No, and he wasn't faster.
He wasn't faster.
But I'll throw in the argument that he had a 5 second pit stop. So if you make that 3 seconds like it should have been, who knows? Do you know what I mean? Like, but then where do you draw the line? That's where they've twisted themselves around.
Yeah, I guess Norris was being held up at that point because it was a bigger gap, and then
he wouldn't have. He still wouldn't have got past
it
with that smaller pit stop.
Yeah. So I think the time, like, it was 2 seconds, but I think obviously had Norris been in clear air and not stuck behind Verstappen, then it would have still been a bigger gap. But Norris didn't. I say he didn't have the pace to get past Verstappen. He followed Verstappen in DRS for a very long time.
Yeah, big time.
Which is difficult around Singapore. I guess it's a difficult track to overtake, and Verstappen's fantastic defensively. And I guess maybe Norris was like, it's not worth crashing. I'm already
above bank the 3 points over Piastri instead of a potential 6-point swing versus 3-point swing versus crashing out. He probably said, I'll bank the 3.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah. I don't think he had the pace to stay there, but he didn't have the pace to overtake. Like, no. You need such a delta here. Like, he didn't have it. So if he'd gone for it, he would have crashed. So I think he did all he could. Really.
The Red Bull is faster in a straight line anyway, so the DRS it still gives the McLaren the benefit, but it's not as big a benefit because the Red Bull's slightly quicker anyway in a straight line. So it is. He needed such a time difference. It seemed odd with strategy that they didn't quite give him a massive tyre offset though. Because it was, they stayed out a bit longer, but then it was only like 4 or 5 laps in the end, which wasn't then enough, considering
I think it might
Verstappen
have been 7.
started on the soft Verstappen started on the soft, Norris was on the medium. So it seemed odd that even 7 laps, I feel like, if they'd have dangled him out a little bit longer.
Well, that was another thing, though, I think, with... it's all, like, harking back to the incident the other day. It was Monza, that pit stop incident, wasn't it? Yeah. It was harking...
There was one in Hungary.
Maybe that's one thing.
Was it Hungary?
I don't even know. No, it's more recent than that.
I don't know.
But it kind of harks back to that, because if I remember rightly, it was... They said to... It was like, Lando was obviously had the priority in the pit stop because he got ahead of Oscar. He didn't want to come in, but they said, well, we're bringing Oscar in. So either you let Oscar go first. He said no. They said, fine, you're coming in. So again, that's another like little... Another incident that now they have to be consistent on every time, and they probably pitted him earlier than they wanted to because they were so interested in making sure they were fair based on that race, that then they were like, well, we can't bring you in and not bring Oscar in because Oscar will get the gap. And it was just... They just weaved them to so many patterns with this thing. It's kind of got away from them a little bit.
But then I guess if having the earlier stop for Piastri and then that benefited him, Piastri is probably not going to give that place back, considering what happened on the opening lap of this race. But it was interesting when Lando was initially asked, it sounded like he said yes, and then he very vehemently replied, no.
Yeah,
so I don't know if he'd like misheard or if he was like, yes, oh no, I definitely don't want that. But it was interesting. But just being asked to make a decision like that when you're 40 degrees, you're sweating, you're tired, to be making such a big call is... I think we, you know, we're like, oh, they're just driving, but I think to make something like that big of a decision when you're in that state, I think is quite difficult.
But I mean, we see that with the very best of the best drivers. They can do everything, and it's incredibly hard, but you know, I think it's a real extra skill on top of it to be able to make those strategy calls and to be on top of it so much. I mean, I think Hamilton's, you know, like that, but then also Sainz is like that. He's always thinking about the strategy, always making the strategy. And then obviously back in the day, Schumacher, obviously famous for that. So I think
famous for crashing into people.
It's just a whole strategy, Elliot. Strategy.
Strategy. Let's just wrap up this race then. So Fernando Alonso declared himself the hero of the race. I think he was being a bit egotistical because Carlos Sainz,
for sure,
he was disqualified from qualifying and then managed to get a point on the board around Singapore. That's
very impressive.
So, you know, obviously Fernando Alonso is not necessarily aware of that, but I thought it was quite funny him coming on the radio to say he was the hero of the race because he was getting a couple of overtakes done. But Carlos Sainz
he kept it interesting though, to be fair.
Overtaking. Yeah. So, finally, Hamilton lost his brakes a couple laps from the end. Do you think this was dangerous to continue? He ended up with a 5-second penalty for cutting the corners.
Yeah, massively.
Because he had no brakes. He couldn't make the corners. Do you think he should have been called in? Do you think the team should have called him in? Harry, what's your opinion?
Yeah, it probably was dangerous. I mean, if you're not making the corners consistently and you can't brake properly,
brakes are quite important.
It's dangerous. I mean, I think it was sort of obviously it was last lap stuff. It might have been past the pit window, but you can always pull the car over. I get why he kept going. It's also hard to tell because the camera didn't show any of this. So, you know, we can see the fact that he's going off, getting those penalty for it. But yeah, I mean, realistically, I think if it was any more than one lap, it definitely would have been a retire the car, come in, stop the car immediately.
Yeah, so I guess because they were near the end and they had like a 45-second buffer to Alonso behind, I guess they just thought we've got the time, so they'll continue. Kieran, do you think that, just quickly, do you think that Ferrari are becoming kind of also Rans? I don't want to say that because there was a point where they were second in the championship, but now after Mercedes have had a couple of good results, they're 27 points behind Mercedes in second. and they're only 8 points ahead of Red Bull in 4th.
Yeah.
Do you think that Ferrari are like a sinking ship?
I think so, and I think, to be honest, they were kind of second, not really free, not free merit, but they were second in the point where McLaren were dominating every single week. Mercedes had a car that was on and off depending on the track conditions, and Red Bull had a car that some people said was undrivable. So you'd argue they probably should be second in that kind of context as well. And now, Mercedes and Red Bull have stepped up a bit. They've just leapfrogged them entirely, and it looks like there's been no real step forward from Ferrari. It feels like they're just going to slot themselves into... They might scrape onto third, but if Red Bull had a competent second driver, they'd be miles behind. The fact that Red Bull are 8 points behind, I mean, Max Verstappen is essentially 8 points behind the entire Ferrari team. It's just insanity that is the case. I mean, it shows it's a credit to Max, obviously, but at the same time, how many times are they going to change it at Ferrari? How many overhauls do they need? How many different team principles do they need? They really are the Man United of F1, in my opinion. They get the most money they have the most money to throw at it. They get the biggest budget. I really think something like the cap really hurts a team like Ferrari.
The FIA, right? They're a legacy team, and so
the FIA and Ferrari are so in bed together. They get so many special discompensations. They've been caught cheating before in 2019 and got a slap on the wrist when other teams would have been in a lot of trouble for it. They have the easiest set of it's like they work on a different set of regulations to everyone else because of their relationship with the FIA, and they still can't get it together. I don't know. It feels like there needs to be a real fundamental change at Ferrari.
I just think it's funny also the narrative, which, like I say narrative as if it could be false, but the sense of it is that Ferrari, everything what you guys have just said, but if you actually look over the last, 10 years or so, they are consistently second, right? They consistently... especially through the Hamilton years and stuff, we had a little bit with the Mercedes and Red Bull going up against each other, but they're always second, third. They're always there. They're always in the conversation.
Yeah.
But they either lose out because their development's not strong enough, or they've sort of started in second and they can never catch up, like we saw sort of McLaren do, or we saw Red Bull do.
Yeah.
So, second or third thereabouts is not terrible, but it's the fact that they can't make that little leap, and there's so many mistakes, there's so much drama with the team, that it creates this sense that they're almost worse than they are.
Let's move on to more positive things and go to driver of the day. Kieran, quick, who's your driver of the day?
It's got to be George Russell. Driver of the weekend, really. He won it on the Saturday, but he never let it go, never looked in doubt, even in what could be tricky conditions. I give it to George Russell for that performance.
And Harry, for you?
I was gonna go with. I was gonna go with Carlos Sainz, but I have a feeling Ellie was gonna go with Sainz, so I'll say Alonso.
Yeah,
just the ones that did stuff.
Yeah, I am going Carlos Sainz. I do find Fernando Alonso entertaining. So. He is still fun to watch, and I hope he knows that. I hope he knows that we'll be very sad when he does leave us again
in about 20 years
from Formula
time.
1 in 20 years time. Yeah, hopefully.
No, I think he said he's got 1 or 2 years left the other day.
I mean, he said he'll find it easier to leave if the 2026 car's quick.
Yeah.
So if it is a good car, then he thinks, I've set the team up, it's fine, I'll leave.
Yeah,
but I think it's bad. He wants to stay and keep developing it, so he could, if it's a quick car next year, maybe our last.
I don't believe it.
Watch them start the year really well, then suddenly dive off a cliff when they're like, oh no, we can't lose Alonso. We can't lose Alonso. Let's suddenly add 50 kilograms to the car or something.
If he at the end of the season, if he's consistently next year getting podiums or in reach of podiums, I don't see him leaving. If he's there and he's driving the car well,
exactly,
and next year he could get more podiums, I don't believe him.
That's such a weird time to leave.
I guess he just wants to go out on the top, maybe.
Yeah, true.
We'll move on to grid news. Hello and welcome to grid news. Carlos Sainz has criticised the race direction for showing too many celebrities and wags, the wives and girlfriends, for those not in the know. We talk about this all the time.
All the time.
We don't care who they're dating. We don't care what famous people have gone to the race. We're not at the race. We hate the people that are at the race. They're rich, we're not. We don't want them on our screens.
True.
We want the drivers. We want those rich people, the drivers, on our screens, not the other rich people. Because, as we said, we missed Hamilton at the end. We missed the Alonso-Hamilton skirmish. I don't really remember seeing any of Carlos Sainz's race.
I didn't know he was P10 until you said it 5 minutes ago.
I get that there's a championship battle, and I don't know what the solution is. I think they just need a bigger picture-in-picture.
Yeah.
Because we could have had the Norris Verstappen DRS thing is a picture-in-picture that was like big enough that you could see it and big enough that you could see the gap between them.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a changing situation. It was, he's 0.8 behind, he's 0.6 behind, he's 0.7 behind. And watching that lap after lap after lap, it loses its, is he going to pass in this DRS zone? Is he going to... Because then it goes away. So I think, yes, it's still interesting and you still want to see it because you want to watch it live when that overtake happens. You don't want to watch a replay of it. But just have it picture-in-picture, but a bigger picture-in-picture. That's my solution anyway. Christian Horner has been ringing up every team owner hunting for a job.
Yeah.
No luck yet. Obviously, he might have to wait a bit. He might come back soon.
Any team would be lucky to have him.
I think Ferrari's the only team that's in a bit of disarray at the moment.
Yeah, honestly.
There's talks that he kind of wants in. Toto has a lot of control, and I think he's always jealous of Toto. So I think he's
always wanted to buy in. He always wanted a stake.
So maybe if we get a 12th team on the grid, which is kind of the cap, right? 12 teams. So maybe if there's a 12th
I think a 12
team
team trying to grab a bit of attention, that might be.
And see him attached to that with some other US consortium or something, some random mixture of people.
Yeah, I don't think an existing team will want to take the heat of it because obviously there's so many questions about.
I don't know. I think you're. These are big companies. They really, honestly, do not care. They do not care. They care about results, and this is one of the most celebrated team principles in F1 history. He will be back on the grid if he wants in. He'll be back on the grid, and pretty much any of those teams would make it work.
If Salvo Briatore can get back on the grid,
at the end of the day, you want results. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's Alpine. They're lowest of the low, but come on, they don't care.
F1's got a long history of scumbags. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I mean, F1 is F1.
Yeah.
You're meant to be a scumbag to be in F1. At the end of the day, Oxford Mosley's son used to run it. What are we talking about? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So Alex Dunn, I don't know if you guys remember this. He did some free practice sessions as a McLaren driver. Very impressive. He's an Irish driver. He has left the McLaren development pathway, whatever it's called, and it's likely he's off to Red Bull. And it was at the time when he was in the free practice, people were saying you don't expect him to come through and become a McLaren driver because he didn't necessarily see that there was a way into the team for him. And I guess another reason maybe Red Bull shouldn't have as many seats as they do, but it's because they have two teams, it's a more attractive route maybe as a young driver to go that way.
That's a good point.
So it'll be interesting to see if he does in 2 or 3 years, if he does have a seat in Red Bull. The way they treat their drivers and have treated their drivers recently, it's interesting to see young talent still going that way and still putting
but I think
a seat in F1's a seat in F1, isn't it? No matter what.
Yeah, exactly. I think we look at it different. Yes, it's harsh, and yes, but they more than anyone, look at the Red Bull driver program and how many of them are still there. It is a great way in.
Not just in the
exactly,
because you have both Williams drivers as well. So so the last thing on grid news is this race was declared a heat hazard, so they did have the cooling vests for the first time. I was reading about them before the race, and some of the drivers are saying that they don't work the whole race. So they're cooled by dry ice, which is, as you guys know, solid carbon dioxide, and it obviously vaporizes.
Yeah.
It goes straight from being a solid to being a gas. And it was just like dissipating, vaporizing, whatever, within like a quarter of the race. So
it's not going to last forever, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then they were getting even hotter than they would have been before.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I get that the cooling vests are trying to fix a problem, but I'm not sure that they're quite there yet.
Not very
but maybe
eco-friendly
if they become
either.
mandatory, yeah.
To have that many freezers producing that much dry ice of pure carbon dioxide, you have to get it pretty cold for that, right? Like, not very.
Well, I make my own, so it's pretty easy. So, we're not the same. Anyway, well, maybe they're some of the smartest people on the planet working Formula One, so I'm sure that it will get better.
Yeah.
But it's just a shame that it's not ready necessarily. I know that a lot of the drivers did run it this weekend, but I don't think it's as good as it could be. And some of the drivers report that it's quite uncomfortable, so...
it just needs some fine-tuning, I imagine.
We'll see. Yeah. Watch this space. Anyway, that is me, over and out for Grid News. Moving on to our preview of the American Grand Prix. This is the actual American Grand Prix.
Yeah, the actual American Grand Prix.
Now, but the actual one. At the Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, where I believe they have the most ridiculously, obnoxiously large flag.
Yeah,
but,
big time.
It's probably average over there. Kieran, give us your prediction.
Good track. I like Circuit of the Americas. I think it is a really good track. It is the best American track by far. Is this a third out of 4? We've still got Vegas to come, don't we?
There's only 3.
Yeah. 3.
Oh, 3. Ignore me. Well, we still have Vegas to come after this one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This is the second of third.
Yeah. So anyway, this is the only. This, in my opinion, is the only American Grand Prix because it's the only one that's on an actual racetrack that is any good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just looking forward to a good race. Hopefully, I think with where McLaren are sliding backwards a bit, maybe it'd be nice to see Red Bull come through. Leclerc always goes quite well around here, from what I remember. Verstappen's always good round here. I'm going to put Verstappen on pole, which is going to convert, followed by George Russell building on a bit of momentum from this week. And I'll put Leclerc in third, just to keep it fresh. There you go. What about you, Els? What's your prediction?
Yeah, keep it crazy.
Funky fresh.
Do you know what? My prediction, I'm not making a prediction for the top 3, but I'm just going to make one prediction, and that is we're going to have a McLaren crash.
Whoa.
Ooh.
That would be so tasty.
An into McLaren
tasty,
crash.
yeah. Yeah, obviously.
Obvious.
Harry,
Take
what about
them both
you? What
out.
are you...
Honestly, both
hoping
McLarens
for this
taken
week?
out, and hoping, both McLarens take each other out, and then Max cruises to victory, and he really almost like, the jokes about him being in the title fight. Suddenly, everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, maybe,
Well,
maybe."
do you
It's
remember?
not a joke anymore.
Do you guys remember when the final race was double points?
Yeah, that one season. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, if that was still like it, the title race would be like,
Yeah.
It'd be a bit more of a thing, right? Because we'd have in essence an extra race because it would just be the points of 25 races, wouldn't it? So it'd be a bit spicy, and maybe Max could win, but probably not in a more realistic world. But
I mean, McLaren should again. It'll be a good test because again they should be a 1-2. But if the others are competitive here, then I think we'll have a good competitive rest of the season. So
yeah,
let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope so. I think we're. This is going to be my final thought, actually, as we're moving on to the final thoughts. My final thought is we're moving on to a good section of the season.
Definitely.
I like Circuit of the Americas, I like Mexico, and I love Interlagos. And we're coming into that bit. So I'm quite looking forward to the next few weeks. Before then, what do we end with? Like Qatar, Vegas, Abu Dhabi. Those three, not as much, but the next three, quite looking forward to. So that's my final thought. Kieran, what about you?
My final thoughts are, I think George Russell will win a championship one day. I think he's shown himself this year that he's not a good driver, he's a great driver. And he's really showed that he is of the level of someone like Leclerc. I think he's of the level of someone like Piastri and Norris. Maybe not Verstappen, but I don't think anyone is. But I think he's got championship potential. And that's always been the case, but I think he's proved it now. I think he's shown he has that calibre. That's my final thought.
And Harry, round us off with your final thought.
Horner, I know you're probably listening because you've got nothing else better to do.
Yeah.
If you want a job, mate, I'm sure I can find you something to do around here, the house. You could probably, I don't know how you could run our household, like an F1 team.
You could do the dishes,
do the dishes. Yeah, Rob never does the dishes, so you could do that.
Just don't leave him in charge of the catering.
No one else
budget.
wants him, so he's probably going cheap.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
So your final thought is you're offering Christian Horner a job.
Yeah.
Nice.
As long as he keeps his spicy messages to himself.
Yeah. And he'll probably say to you, I'll do it, but don't upload our spicy messages to the internet. So, anyway, on that note, I will say thank you very much for listening to our podcast. You can always, follow us on our social medias. Get in touch. We actually have listeners in 22 different countries.
Wow.
So if you are one of our listeners and you're not in the UK, please let us know. We would love to hear from you.
Let us know where you're from.
Let us know where you're from. Let us know how you found us. Have you told your friends? Please do. Because we don't have that many and they're all the same people. It's just the people on this podcast. Thank you for listening. Hope we see you again in our next race. And thank you, Kieran. Thank you, Harry, for joining me. Hope you guys have lovely weeks.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Funky Fresh.